Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. Today we're going to check out Lionel's Pennsylvania 210-4 Texas type steam locomotive. This steam engine is called a 210-4 Texas, but what does that mean? Well, the 210-4 refers to the wheel arrangement. It means you've got 2 wheels up front, 10 drive wheels, and 4 wheels on the trailing truck, so therefore they designate this as a 210-4. Okay, so what does Texas mean? Texas is just a nickname that was given to the 210-4 type of steam engine. These were originally used on the C&O Railroad, and they were designated as T1s, but they got the nickname of Texas, so they would call any 210-4 locomotive a Texas, and the name stuck. But on other railroads, they used other names. On the Burlington, they were called Colorados, and in Canada, they were called Selkirks. But whatever the nickname, they all referred to the same type of engine, that being a 210-4 steam engine. Now, back in the steam era, the Pennsylvania usually preferred to design their own engines that were customized to their needs. But in this case, they had to borrow the design of the 210-4 from the C&O Railroad. And the story behind that is that during World War II, the government placed restrictions on the design of new engines. The railroads were only allowed to build certain types of engines during the war, and so in the early 1940s, when the Pennsylvania needed new engines, they weren't allowed to design new ones of their own, so they had to go borrow a design, and in this case, they borrowed the design of the 210-4 Texas from the C&O. Now, ironically, even though they didn't design the Texas-type steam engines, they ended up with the largest fleet of them. They had 125 of these before it was all said and done. But in an ironic twist, even though they had the largest fleet of Texas-type steam engines, none of them survive today. They were all eventually scrapped, and the only surviving examples today are from other railroads. Lionel's version of the 210-4 Texas was first offered in their 2011 Volume 1 catalog, and then it shipped in late 2011. Okay, let's start the review with some basic stats and info on the engine. The overall length is about 29 inches. The combined weight of the engine and the tender is 14 pounds 5 ounces. This engine's a pretty good puller. It has 3 pounds 8 ounces of pulling power, and the minimum curve needed to operate this engine is 0.72. Under the hood, the engine is powered by one large flywheel motor, and then back in the tender, you'll find Lionel's legacy control and sound systems. There are 3 ways to operate this engine. The recommended way is to use Lionel's legacy command system. That will allow you to unlock the engine's full potential. However, you can also run the engine with Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can run the engine conventionally with just a transformer and some track. The engine and the tender feature die-cast metal bodies as well as die-cast metal trucks and pilots and so forth. The engine and the tender are loaded with great details and wonderful features, so let's go ahead and move in for a closer look. Here's a look at the pilot and the drop coupler. Now, at first, the pilot may seem to be a bit simple, but that's okay because the pilots on the real Pennsy 210-4s were not very fancy, so this is actually very accurate. Now, the way the drop coupler works is that when you want to use it, you swing it up like this, and then pop it in, and it stays in place like that. And then when you want to put it back down, you pull it out and swing it back down. Now, this is a scale dummy coupler, but if you want to double head the engine, you can swap that out with a dummy O-gauge coupler that Lionel packages with the engine. Above the pilot, we've got all this great action going on here. There are loads of separately applied and cast-in details that make this thing look massive when it's coming down the rails. We've got the Keystone number plate right here. Here's the headlight, and it's got lighted number boards on either side. And then we've got operating marker lights up here. And as an added touch, the front of the boiler swings open like that. There are builder's plates on either side of the boiler, and the builder's plates are legible with a magnifying glass. Here's a look at one of them. On top, it says Altoona Works. On the bottom, it says June 1943, and then it has the serial number for the engine, which is 4437. And then in the middle, in larger type, is the official designation that the Pennsylvania gave to this type of engine, which is J1A. Moving on past the builder's plates, the sides of the engine feature separately applied handrails, pipes, and valves, and a number of nice cast-in details as well, and there are even a couple hand-painted valves in there. The outside of the cab looks great. On either side, up front, there's a little window here. Then on the main window there are two sections. One has a clear plastic insert and the other one is open. There's some nice detailing down here. We've got a road number here, and then this placard under a magnifying glass reads Pennsylvania Railroad Equipment Trust Series N, Fidelity Philadelphia Trust Company, trustee, owner, and lessor. The top of the engine is nicely detailed. As you can see, the smokestack has one of the two operating smoke units that this engine has, the other being for the cylinder steam effect, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And of course, to load smoke fluid into the smokestack, you just pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Moving back, we've got some separately applied sand fill caps and then some hand-painted pop-off valves back here. This piece detaches, and hidden underneath are the controls for the engine. We've got the run program switch, the Odyssey speed control on-off switch, the on-off switch for the main smoke unit, which is for the smokestack, and then the on-off switch for the auxiliary smoke unit, which on this engine is for the cylinder steam effect. Moving toward the back, we've got some more separately applied details, including this hand-painted whistle, and then over the cab, we've got this roof vent that opens up like that. The underside of this engine is amazingly detailed, but let's start off by looking at the cylinders and the cylinder steam effect. I've already mentioned that this engine has two smoke units. The first smoke unit is for the smokestack up top, and the second smoke unit is for the cylinder steam effect. So what is the cylinder steam effect? Well, on the underside of each set of cylinders on either side of the engine, there are two holes. So on this set of cylinders, you've got a hole right here on the underside, and another one right here. And on the other set of cylinders on the other side of the engine, you've got the same setup. And when the cylinder steam effect is activated, it shoots smoke out of those holes and gives the illusion of smoke being shot out of the bottom of the cylinders, and the effect is really, really cool. Now, there are two ways to activate the cylinder steam effect. The first way is automatically. When you first power the engine up and the engine first starts moving, steam will shoot out of the cylinders automatically until one of two things happens. Either 15 seconds passes or you reach a speed of 50 on the legacy remote. Whichever event happens first, that will cause the cylinder steam effect to shut off, and then the engine will start chuffing away as it normally would. The second way that the cylinder steam effect can be activated is by the user. There's a button on the legacy remote that will allow you to activate the cylinder steam effect anytime you want. And what's really cool about the cylinder steam effect is not only does steam shoot out of the bottom of the cylinders, but you also get a corresponding sound effect. Now, if any of this seems confusing, don't worry, because in a few minutes when we start the engine up, I will show you the cylinder steam effect in action, and hopefully that will answer any questions you have. One last thing that I wanted to mention about the cylinder steam effect before we move on is that even though there are two smoke units on this engine, they share the same smoke fluid reservoir. So when you pour smoke fluid in the stack up here, that supplies smoke fluid for the smokestack and the cylinder steam effect at the same time. Moving on, we've got the drive wheels and drive gear. We've got these nice spoke drivers and then all this busy action going on here. And as you can see, when the engine is in operation, it looks great. As you can see, the area under the cab is great. We've got all these separately applied pipes and so forth going all over the place. There's great rivet detail on the firebox. And then down here is where the variable ash pan glow effect is. And the way that works is that when the engine is on, there's a red glow in the ash pan down here. And then as the engine gets faster, that red glow gets more intense. Here's a look inside the cab. There are two hand-painted crew figures, a number of hand-painted valves and gauges. The interior of the cab is lighted, and there's a red glow in the firebox when the engine is in operation. Here's a look at the bottom of the engine. We've got 4 pickup rollers and then traction tires on the rear set of drivers, and you can also get a look at those holes that are in the bottom of the cylinders for the cylinder steam effect. Now let's take a look at the tender. The tender is gigantic, and Lionel did a great job here. As I said before, the tender features die-cast metal construction on the body and the trucks. The truck side frames are very nicely detailed. Up here, we've got this great big Pennsylvania logo and some nice cast-in details. And then on either end, we've got separately applied grab irons. The front of the tender has some very good cast-in detailing, including these nice ladders on either side. And then this detailing up here, which includes some coal pouring out of the front of the tender, which is a nice touch. On the back of the tender, we've got an operating reverse light as well as 2 marker lights. There's a separately applied ladder as well as a separately applied radio antenna that goes up onto the roof. We'll see more of this in just a minute. Down here, there's a legible placard which under a magnifying glass reads number 6479, class 210 F84, engine number 6479. Under that, we've got a coupler cut bar, some nice step detail on the ends here, and then a coupler that can be fired from the legacy remote. On the top of the tender, toward the back, is this structure. This is called a doghouse. Back in the days when brakemen were needed on trains, some railroads like the Pennsy would build a shelter on the back of the tender to help protect the brakemen from the elements. And so that's what we've got here, and it looks great. There's a nice cast-in door here. We've got 3 porthole windows on this side, and then windows over here as well as on this side over here. And there's also a separately applied handrail going all the way around. But the nicest part is that the interior of the doghouse is illuminated and contains a hand-painted crew figure. Moving past the doghouse, we've got the radio antenna coming up this way and some nicely detailed brackets holding it up. And then we've got 2 opening compartments. This one right here has nothing underneath it. And then this one over here contains the master volume control for the engine. And then moving on from there, we've got our coal bin, which is decorated with real coal. Finally, here's a look at the underside of the tender. There's a little water scoop right here. We've got a pickup roller on each truck, and then under this truck are the 2 speakers for the sound system. Okay, the last thing we're going to do before we start this engine up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. In my opinion, the best feature is sort of a no-brainer. It's the cylinder steam effect. This is one of the great new innovations that Lionel has brought onto the market in the last few years. I'm a big fan of it. It really brings the engine to life, and I really hope that Lionel will continue to offer this and the other advanced smoke features in the future. So in my opinion, best feature, hands down, is the cylinder steam effect. Okay, we're ready to go. Now, for those of you who are new to the hobby, I'm going to be running the engine today with my Lionel Legacy Command Control remote. Here's the remote. I've got the engine pulled up, and this button will start the engine. Now, I'm going to do the extended startup sequence, which is activated by pressing and holding the startup key. So let's go ahead and start her up.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over. I read you. Over. Please start her up and stand by for track orders. Roger that. Ready to move. Out.
Okay, first let's hear the whistle. Here's the bell. Now let's hear some of the crew talk.
Train is ready to go. Can I depart? Over. Roger that. Take the green. Over. Yes, sir. I have a clear signal. Out. Dispatcher here. You are clear to pull. Over. Yes, sir. We got your signal. Out.
There's a sound effect for the tender being filled with water. It's activated by pressing this button on the Legacy remote, or the number 3 key. Let's give it a listen. Now let's check out the cylinder steam effect. As I said earlier, there are 2 ways to activate it. The first way is automatically. You'll see that in just a minute when the engine starts moving. And the second way is to activate it myself. That's done by pressing this button on the Legacy remote, or the 6 key. So let's give it a try. And you see all the steam that's shooting out? Pretty cool. Here's what the cylinder steam effect looks like from the front of the engine, and I've dimmed the lights a little bit to make it easier to see, so let's give it a try. we're just about ready to move out, but before we do, I'm going to activate sequence control, which will automate some of the sounds while the engine is running. To activate sequence control, you press and hold the aux 1 key until you hear a ding-ding-toot sound. Like that. So we're ready to go. Now remember that when the engine first starts moving, the cylinder steam effect will be automatically activated for the first 15 seconds.
That's affirmative. Your track is clear. Over. Copy that, dispatcher. Out. Going to sign the register book. Out.
Okay, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a great engine. It looks big, it sounds big, and the steam blowdown effect can't be beat. If you're interested in purchasing one of these engines, they retail for about $1,300, although if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a decent discount off that retail price. Now, it may be a bit of a challenge to find a dealer that has one of these in stock, and that's simply because it's been out for a while. It's not a brand new model. So if you want to find one of these, I would suggest giving my favorite train store, Legacy Station, a call, and they may be able to track one down for you. You can call them at 770-339-7780, or find them on the web at www.legacystation.com. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.